for joining us on the Halloween special, episode 28 of You're Welcome, the podcast where two ghouls who don't know squat become experts on everything. I am Zombie Zach.
And I'm Drew.
Welcome to the show. This week we'll be teaching you about
Haunted houses.
haunted houses and
I don't
that's me.
know. What are you doing?
Ghost hunting.
Great.
So, my friend, how was your week, man?
Well, the week was pretty good. Let's see. As far as work goes, they have hired our holiday season temp employees.
Oh,
So, meeting a few new temporary faces. But the week was pretty smooth up until the last day of the week, where like not our boss, but like our team leader, type person, like the most experienced person on our team, he was drilling into the top plate of a stud bay, and then like inside somebody's attic, and when you're doing that, it's like a inch and a half thick bit, like it's a huge bit, and I guess he was drilling and the bit got stuck, and then the drill like flung out of his hand, so it was like flying, so like it flew sideways.
Oh no!
The big battery at the end, clocked him right in the head.
Oh my god, that's terrible.
So he went to the hospital, and I drove out to where that job was and finished it for him.
Oh no!
So that made it to where I didn't get home until like 8 p.m. that night.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but besides that, it was a great week.
Well, there you go.
What about you?
Well, for my week, it was pretty good up until, last day of the week, kind of like yours. Work-wise, I mean. So my direct manager just got laid off. So
Woo!
I don't know what that means for where I'm
Moving
at
on up,
in
huh?
the company.
You
Or
getting a promotion?
God, no, I don't want this job. No. So yeah, there's that. But at the time of this recording, it was my birthday weekend. So
Today is your birthday.
well, yeah, today is my birthday. But we spent the weekend celebrating the birthday, so it was fun. It was good.
Happy birthday!
Like you!
Baba booey, baba booey.
Baba Booey!
For those of you listening later, you won't know my actual birthday. We're not going to tell you. Unless you follow my fiance on social media, in which case you'll know. Anyway, but that's been my week. But I hear some tellings of some really cool adventures that you could go on during your Halloween season, your spooky season. It is the spooky month, as you heard from the intro. So I heard of some really cool places you can go to get the pants scared off you. I think you may know a little more about that.
Yeah, I know a thing or two, I think, about haunted houses. I think you're speaking of.
Yes.
Woo!
Tell me more. Tell us and the listeners the hauntedness.
Yeah, so if you're an alien from another planet or you live under a rock, then maybe you don't know what a haunted house is. There could be two interpretations of haunted houses. The first interpretation, which I will not be covering today, but I guess would be more along the lines of what Zach's covering today.
Yeah.
Is a property or a homestead of some sort, or not even necessarily a home, but some sort of building that is supposedly inhabited by a being of otherworldly planar existences.
Yes.
So ghosts, you could call them.
Yeah, spirits, poltergeists.
But the haunted house that I'm referring to would be more of an entertainment attraction that is set up by a business to for the purposes of scaring individuals for profit.
Oh, okay. Well, tell us more about that.
So I got two major sections that I'll cover today.
Okay.
And the first is going to be the business side of things. So if you're looking to start your haunted house attraction this Halloween season, well, here you go. So I think the best way to kind of know how to run a haunted house is, if you know what not to do, then that maybe will help you get an idea for what you should be doing.
Okay.
So that's going to be the major thing that I'm going to focus on. So I got 5 major mistakes for new business owners and or new haunted house owners. So this could possibly be applied to other businesses as well.
Okay, sure.
So mistake number 1 would be a lack of sufficient capital. So you should prepare for the absolute worst situations and have enough capital saved up to cover the most dire of emergencies before you even begin to plan anything at all. So a lot of people will make a business plan, make a budget for a specific amount of capital, and that amount of money would be good to start the business on day one. And they're not thinking about long term, or they're not thinking about, well, what if I start renting this property for my business and turns out it has termite damage, or there's a number of things that are emergency situations that are going to require a lump sum of cash in a small amount of time.
Right.
So it's good to have that money saved up before you even think about planning anything else whatsoever. So number 2 would be considering the building itself that you're going to be purchasing or renting. So when you're looking at properties, you have to think about your fire and health codes and your building inspections. Because even though you're going to own this business and you're going to be quote unquote your own boss, there's still going to be people that you have to answer to. So, the fire marshal and health inspectors and all these people that have to come in and approve you to start your business. You also, whenever you're looking at properties, need to think about what sort of parking situation there will be. This is more important whenever it comes to haunted houses, because especially once you start to get really, really popular, the parking situation needs to be large. You need to have a lot of parking for a haunted house. You also need to think about the general flow of crowds. So where are people going to be, what sort of pathway are people going to be taking from the moment they leave their vehicle to when they get to the entrance of the house? As far as the inside of the house, that will kind of work its way, that'll work itself out.
Yeah.
But it's important to not just focus on the pathway that guests are taking inside the house, but also making it convenient for the flow of crowd's sake, making things more fluid that way.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then you also need to think about your atmosphere and the travel distance from the most populated area in your general area, I guess, in your county or in your state or whatever. So in some cases, you actually in the specific situation of a haunted house, you may actually want to be a solid 15 minutes or more, maybe up to even an hour's drive out into the country. You'll probably find better properties with large fields for parking, and the atmosphere out in the middle of the country will be creepier, and you're going to get less noise complaints, and properties out in the middle of nowhere are probably going to be cheaper, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it just kind of makes sense for a haunted house to be located out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there are those haunted houses that are, held within, abandoned industrial parks or an old factory that's in the middle of a city or things like that. So there's pros and cons atmospherically to both. But that's just something to think about.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So starting a business for the wrong reasons would be my third mistake.
Ooh.
In the case of haunted houses, you shouldn't be starting a haunted house to make loads of money.
I mean, they're open
it's just
one time
not going
a year,
to
right?
happen. Yeah. So you're not going to make a ton of money, at least not in your first, 3 to 5 years of business. Because, if you're starting a house in a market where there's few haunted houses, then there's probably not going to be a huge population to accommodate, a brand new haunted house where there is no haunted house yet. And if you're starting a haunted house in a city, then you're going to have 10 or 15 competitors.
Right.
So you're just not going to make a lot of money until you start making a name for your business. So if you have plenty of capital and you have an infatuation for Halloween, then go for it. But be prepared to lose money your first couple of years. Also, decide ahead of time what you're looking for in actors. The biggest decisions to make in that realm would be: are you okay with paying your actors, or maybe you want to go some paid, some volunteer, or maybe you want to go entirely volunteer actors?
Yeah.
And then you need to decide: do you want your cast to be entirely adults, or are you willing to include minors? So there are pros and cons for both, of course.
Yeah.
Minors are more likely to want to volunteer, but at the same time, you can be picky with paid positions and hold auditions so that you get a cast of paid actors who are actually good or experienced or mature.
Mm-hmm.
So those are just things that you should gauge your comfort level or your level of willingness to manage, children.
Yeah. That's fair.
My fourth mistake for a new haunted house business owner would be getting in over your head. So you should start with a small and easily managed location with plenty of parking and room for a building add-on down the road. Or maybe you just want to get into a short lease rental so that it's easy to find another location once you start to build up your clientele.
Mm-hmm.
And get consultation from a small business administration representative. There are people out there specifically whose jobs are to help small business owners or new business owners.
Oh, well, there you go.
Take advantage of your tax dollars at work.
Yeah.
And then my final mistake for a new business owner of a haunted house would be a lack of marketing. By now, you probably have the haunted house getting close to being consumer ready. So start marketing 1 or 2 months before you open and get as many different avenues of marketing as possible and launch them all on the same day. So, don't go buy a billboard 2 months out and then start your Facebook page the week before you start your haunted house.
Yeah.
Also, I would say hire a web designer for a killer website. Start your Facebook group, your Twitter, your YouTube, your Instagram, and nowadays your TikTok, if you're willing to get into that. And make a marketing budget as a part of your initial capital investment so you can purchase ads for Facebook, YouTube, etc.
Gotcha. So those sounds like pretty good tips for at least beginning a haunted house. But let's take a step back from the business side, the whole practicality of it. What if you wanted to get into the acting side of it? Did you become an expert in that as well?
So not only did I brush up on my haunted house acting expertise specifically for this week, but I do actually have prior experience in this field for once. Unlike the other weeks of expertise subject matter.
So could you yourself be considered an expert?
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
I hope so. But I do have 3 years of haunted house acting experience.
Oh, well, there you go.
But it was a good while ago. But that did obviously help me kind of come up with my tips and tricks for those of you guys who are wanting to get into haunted house acting. Luckily, haunted house acting is a lot less complicated than owning a business.
So I would think so.
Yeah, it might be easier to get into this than starting a haunted house yourself.
First job, scare people. Got it.
Okay, so you've been hired / volunteered to act in a haunted house. Well, here's a few things you should know before you get into the thick of it. Step 1. Develop your character.
Oh.
Has the owner of the haunt given you a role, or do you have free reign to develop a character on your own? If you've been assigned a role or a character, there are still a few things that you can do to make that character your own. So still follow along with the rest of these tips. But if the owner has given you a role, then you're a little bit more. I don't know. Some of the work, I'll say, has kind of been done for you.
Yeah.
But if you're free reign and get to do what you want, even so, you will most likely still be given a scene. Like, you're going to be in this room.
Yeah.
That at least is most likely going to be chosen for you ahead of time. So what sort of scene will you be acting in? It doesn't make much sense to play a cannibal butcher in the clown room or to play a clown in the Bayou Hillbilly scene. So base your character around the scene that you'll be in.
Gotcha. Okay.
Once you come up with a general idea of what your character is and maybe what they look like, give them a name. Also, start thinking about your backstory. How did your character get to where they are, and how did they become who they are? This, I think, is a super important step that most actors don't ever think about. Even if you're not a haunted house actor, if you're playing a role in a play, think about, what was your character doing 1 hour before the play started, 1 day, 1 week, 1 year before the play started, or in this instance, before, the guests arrived to the haunted house.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It sounds like a theater tip too.
Yeah. So think about your backstory and how you got to where you are now and who you are. Even Pennywise wasn't always a clown. He started off as an interplanetary space spider that traveled to Earth on a meteor.
Oh.
So, spoiler for it, but figure out who your character, where your character came from. Maybe they weren't always a monster, but they were driven into becoming a monster. Think about your motivations. Why are you in your scene? Is this where you live? Also, think about the guests that will be walking through your scene. Your character should assume their motivations and react to their sudden presence. In the Cannibal Butcher example, maybe your butcher character assumes they are either customers, or maybe they're being dropped off in your shop to be butchered. Or maybe you think they've come to steal some of your product. Regardless, your character's motivations, as well as the guest's motivations that your character presumes, could either be serious and creepy, or it could be humorous in some way. Yeah. So don't get tunnel visioned into thinking that your job is to scare everyone that comes through. Your job is to get a reaction of any kind, entertain, give the guests a bang for their buck, and make them have a good time.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So once you figured all that stuff out, the actual acting portion, you need to put your costume together.
Ooh, yes.
So if you're lucky, your haunted house will have a surplus of costumes. But if not, don't just sprint to your closest spirit store. Those places are kind of a ripoff. They have some okay deals on decorations, but most of their costumes are cheap and overpriced. Instead, get creative. Thrift stores are awesome for piecing together costumes on a budget, and most of the materials that those clothes will have, most of the clothes that they have will be much more durable. So you need to think about how long this particular piece of clothing that you're considering buying is going to last. You need something that's going to last at least a month, not just one night, Halloween night. Right?
Yeah.
So learn how to sew if you have to, or ask mom or grandma to patch up the few tears or rips that you find in your awesome thrift shop costume. But in my opinion, I think costumes that are pieced together at various, thrift stores, they tend to look more genuine anyway.
Oh yeah.
They don't, because I mean, like no one likes the look of polyester.
Yeah. I mean, it's garbage.
Yeah. So makeup is just as important. Some characters have more makeup than others. I'm looking at you, clowns. But for the most part, you'll need to decide whether you want to go to the just makeup route or maybe the makeup and prosthetics duo route, or maybe you decide you just want to wear a mask and not clog up your soft, precious pores. That's fair. That's fair. Either route you take, you'll need to go shopping for a few more things, as most of that stuff your haunt won't provide.
Mm-hmm.
It's better to own your own makeup or mask anyways for sanitary reasons.
Yeah.
So after all that prep, it's just getting in your room and getting some acting time under your belt. Practice makes perfect, and there's no better experience than the real deal.
Yeah, absolutely. So now that we've got all that covered, I mean, do you have any tips on getting hired? I mean, because, you know, you think, okay, well, I'm going into this. I think I can be scary, but I don't know. How do you get hired as a haunted house worker?
Yeah, that's it's an interesting topic, because you have to that brings up the topic of, I guess, like first time actors versus experienced actors.
Yeah.
And it's easy to think like, oh yeah, I can scare people. You know, I can scare my little brother all the time. But like once you actually get into a haunted house as an actor, like the first time you're doing it, it feels weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like you feel like you're a weirdo.
Yeah, I imagine
you feel like you're a dork. But after a while, you get used to it. But as far as getting hired, I would say that the power is mostly in your hands as opposed to the haunted house's hands in most cases.
Mm-hmm.
Other than, you know, like it's a really well-known haunted house and everyone's trying to get into it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, that's not going to be the case. Most haunted houses are going to be itching for more actors.
Yeah.
So be confident in knowing that. So choosing a haunted house. A few things to consider. Can you drive? How far are you willing to drive? And if you can't drive, how far are you willing to walk?
Mm-hmm.
Or how far is your parent or friend willing to drive you?
Yeah.
Are you willing to volunteer? If you want to get paid, do you have acting experience? Who is the owner or staff of the haunted house that you are considering? And you can certainly ask around about a haunt that you're considering. What is their business reputation? What is the reputation of the acting regulars? There are certainly actors who come to the same haunted house every single year and have been doing so for 15 years. And maybe some of them are easy to work with and some of them are not so easy to work with. So if you are able to find an actor who used to work for a haunted house, you can ask those types of questions to them. But don't get too attached to one place, and be prepared to pack your bags and find another place to act for. Most places are volunteer only.
Yeah.
And it feels like haunted houses have a reputation for having managers that don't know how to treat their volunteer actors. So once you end up finding a haunted house that will have you, if you aren't liking your experience, throw the deuces and find somewhere that appreciates you.
Throw the deuces, my God.
Throw the deuces. I think as an actor in general, whether you're getting paid or volunteer or whatever, there are a few things that you should expect. You should expect free water.
Okay.
You should expect a potty break every 2 to 3 hours. Some sort of relief situation where a staff member comes through and says, it's your turn to use the restroom. But there are absolutely instances where, you know, maybe this haunted house says that they give you bathroom breaks, but they never actually, you know, like close the haunted house down for like 5 minutes to give the actors a break. Or, you know, they don't have backup actors that go in for and relieve certain people throughout the night. So there are certain things that you should expect. And if you aren't getting those things, then either, you know, argue it out and, you know, make it a thing, or find somewhere else to go.
I mean, otherwise you just find Larry the Clown peeing in the corner.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's pretty much all I got. Yeah.
Well, there you go. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you for that little tidbit on the fake haunted houses. Now I'm going to tell you about some real haunted houses on that you can visit on a real ghost hunt.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So, it's the spooky month, and you've come to us for tips and tricks on how to ghost hunt. Well, for those of you who don't like to Google in the ghoulish realms, have I got a treat for you. Ghost hunting is the search for the paranormal, the investigation into the macabre, or the macabre, as some people would say. The hunt for, well, ghosts. It's kind of self-explanatory. So, this type of adventuring is highly popularized by TV shows like A Haunting, Ghost Adventures, etc., etc. So if you've seen that, you kind of have an idea on what I'm talking about. Now, before I dive into the ectoplasm, I actually this time have some definitions for you. May not use them all in this episode, but here you go. First thing, an EMF meter, which is a device capable of reading electromagnetic fields, EMF, in the area. Typically used to track ghosts because they emit electrical pulses, supposedly. Cold spots are areas of cool air found in haunted locations. Orbs are spheres of translucent light, often whitish or pastel-colored, usually appearing in photographs. Many investigators believe they represent spirits or ghosts. Ooh. An entity is any being, including people and ghosts. EVP is the electronic voice phenomena, the act of capturing and recording a disembodied voices and sounds. A ghost is a sentient entity or a spirit that visits or lingers in our world long after death. Haunting, or / haunted, describes a location where there appears to be significant paranormal activity. Often includes a combination of cold spots, apparitions, ghosts, missing objects, and other repeated phenomenon witnessed by several people, which leads to the location getting a reputation for this kind of activity. Spooky. There's manifestation, the tactile, auditory, olfactory, like smells, and visual signs of a haunting. And there can also be residual energy. It's like when emotionally charged events leave like an imprint or energy residue, like ectoplasm, on nearby objects and locations. Residual energy or hauntings will often repeat a specific event from the past over and over again, as if on loop, such as the same footsteps walking down a hallway. Final one is a portal, which is just a doorway through which spirits can enter and exit a location. So, now that we know some of the verbiage used in hunting ghosts, so what you might be asking is how can I prepare for my first ghost hunt?
How can I prepare for my first ghost hunt?
Well, my friend, you'll want some ghost hunting equipment.
Welcome to Zach's ghost hunting equipment store.
I've got tons of things for you. Cameras and sensors and tons of ghost things that I'll tell you about it. That's a good bit. Now, I will caution our listeners with this. A lot of the official equipment that you'll find online is kind of silly. And probably doesn't really do anything, but it's for the fun of it, right? You're going out to find a spirit, and it's for fun. So, one thing I found consistently in my research is that you'll want flashlights.
Oh, yeah.
Tons and tons of batteries to go with those flashlights because they can run out quick, or the apparitions can knock them out faster. Another thing is to bring a notepad and pen. Surprisingly, so you can write down your experiences and anything that you may feel, hear, smell, anything like that. You'll probably want a camera. Some hunters recommend a camera with at least 4 megapixels, but a cheap point and shoot on your phone's camera works too. Typically, if they have flash, is a good thing. It's kind of highly recommended, especially if you're hunting in the dark. That way, the images are visible afterwards. But if you're using a camera that can record video, remember to, again, bring plenty of batteries for that camera, or a battery backup for your phone, if you expect to. A voice recorder is also recommended, so you can pick up any disembodied voices that you might hear at a haunted location. You'll also want to dress appropriately for your excursion. Wear some comfortable shoes, bring a jacket, make it cold in those little cold spots. And if you want to get fancy with it, you can go online and spend as much money as you want on real hunter equipment, like extremely expensive cameras, like full spectrum, meaning it can see throughout the visible spectrum. You can buy EMF meters, laser sensors. I don't know what they do. Holy water, among other religious protection items. And apparently you can even buy a handheld portal machine, which I think is supposed to attract spirits to help you locate them. I'm not really sure. The website, I visited was kind of vague about it. It didn't really tell me what it was for. But for my money, I would recommend just the pen and paper, flashlight, your phone, and or a cheap camera. I mean, you really don't need all the fancy and impractical, and frankly, overpriced equipment.
Right. But you can't just like grab some equipment and go out into your backyard, right? Like, you got to go to like a haunted location. So, are there like certain types of places I can look for, or maybe I need to go to a very specific location, or what?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Because the locations where you find spirits or what have you are exactly where you expect. So most paranormal interactions take place near battlefields, forts, cemeteries, schools, and houses. So you'll want to check out these locations in your area first. But one thing that's important to note here is do your research. Even if you're investigating your own home, it's a good idea to research a particular location's haunted history. You can prepare yourself for potential challenges and learn more about the paranormal sightings in an area. I'm sure you can find tons of things online or in your local newspaper, maybe like your local fringe newspaper. So you can learn more about your local area online or what have you. For example, so like if sightings commonly occur in the evening, you'll know to plan your ghost hunt around that time and around a specific area or in a haunted house. You might even find a few pictures of or backscatter in your research, where a camera flash picks up invisible spirits and auras. Another thing to note is to never investigate alone. Ghost hunts are not only much more fun with a group, but they're also much safer. You never know what kind of ghouls you'll encounter, so bring a buddy or two is advised. Plus, if you spot some frightening phantoms, you'll be able to prove you're not crazy, since all your friends have seen them as well. Hopefully. I mean, unless you're the only one who sees them, in which case, you may be a psychic. I don't know. Another thing to note, much like in urban exploration, always ask permission if you're investigating property that isn't your own. It's often best to have the property owner give written consent to avoid any legal troubles due to trespassing. If a property owner doesn't want you to ghost hunt in a particular area, there's probably a good reason. Maybe I think you actually did on a ghost tour, something like that, and they told you couldn't go into that house. Cause
there was. I did a walking ghost tour in Galveston, and there was like one of the houses that we were walking around like outside was like technically a crime scene, so like we could get arrested if we were found inside. Like you could get arrested regardless because trespassing is trespassing, but like I guess the criminal charges could be much more devastating if you were trespassing in this particular property.
Yeah. So again, there's probably a good reason.
Yeah.
And to be on the safe side, don't forget your personal ID, just in case you may need it anytime during your adventure. I would say be safe and cautious. Take special precautions in secluded areas or at night because the terrain will be unfamiliar to you and your sight will obviously be impaired in the dark. Now, safety during a ghost hunt is very important. If you're prepared and research the best ghost hunting locations beforehand, your exploration should be exciting and safe. In order to err on the side of caution, you may want to bring a first aid kit with some bandages and antibiotic ointment to accompany your ghost hunting party. Now, I'm going to get into the hunt itself. You found your location. You know where you're at. You've got your group of friends. You got your gear. Let's get into it. We're at this scary house. Now, before you start, it's recommended that you say a prayer of protection and guidance before you go in. With varying religious beliefs, you can meditate or think of something positive, whatever's most comfortable for you. Don't just charge in and start taking pictures and running around hoping a ghost will show up. It's like entering a stranger's house and having a party. They won't like you disrupting their home and would rather you leave. The spirits were once people too and will probably react the same way. So, start your investigation calmly and with a clear mind. Talk to the spirits like they're living people. It's probably been quite a while since anyone spoke to them, and they're anxious to hear what you have to say. Introduce yourself, ask permission to take pictures and to be on their property. Invite them to be in your photos. Say, hey, can I take a picture of you? Spooky. If they respond in any way to these requests, thank them. When you leave, thank them for having you. Now, follow your instincts when taking photos. If you feel the need to take a picture in a certain direction, go ahead and take it. Take pictures behind you or over your shoulder, and take tons and tons of photos, as much as your camera can hold. The more pictures you take, the better chance you will have at catching some kind of anomaly. Before you leave, though, gather your group and say another prayer out loud that nothing follows you home and that the spirits stay at this location. Now, again, leaning back to the urban exploration, make sure you always leave the location as you found it. Don't take anything, leave it as it was, just take pictures. Take pictures and go. Now, here are some things that I would recommend you shouldn't do, at least some other websites recommend you not do. Do not smoke, wear perfume, or scented deodorant before going on these trips. Spirits sometimes emit odors, such as the scent of flowers, smoke, or even the foul smell of rotten eggs to get your attention. Weirdly enough, you want to be able to detect these odors and not be distracted by outside smells. Smoke can also show up in your photos and be mistaken as ectoplasm. No horsing around. Keep unnecessary talk to a minimum. Of course, I mean, how are you going to hear the subtle sounds spirits make if you're going to be making a lot of noise, talking, and pushing each other around, blah, blah, blah. Spirits will show an interest in you if you are showing an interest in them. Last thing, I think important, very, very, very important here. Do not provoke a spirit. Unless you have done your homework, you do not know who the spirit is or the personality of the spirit you're trying to communicate with. You could make the spirit very angry, and they may decide to attach themselves to you and make your life miserable. They may also affect your friends and family members, and these attachments may last for a short time or continue to disrupt your life for a very long time and are very difficult to get rid of. A la the Exorcist. So, now, if you don't feel like doing any research and manually ghost hunting, you can go fright seeing, or also known as a ghost tour, typically led by a local. They can lead you and whoever else buys into the tour for a walk through an exploration and an explanation of the reported haunted and ghostly encounters in an area. So yeah, nice. Final thing, have fun with it. I mean, it's spooky. It's supposed to be spooky. Have fun.
Awesome. Thanks for those ghost hunting tips.
Yeah, you're welcome. So, we're going to talk about our next show subjects. It's hard to say that in quick succession. So, Drew, what are you doing? What are you doing for the next show? It's nothing spooky, I hope.
No.
Oh, good.
No, it's not.
Good.
So this episode, I guess I could say today, it is Halloween. We have released this episode on Saturday the 31st.
Absolutely.
Whereas on our normal schedule, it would have been November 2nd, but we're releasing it a couple days early. So then we're talking about November 16th. That will be the next show.
Got it. Okay.
And that show, I'll be an expert in another sport.
Ooh, mama.
Much like my previous Florentine, essentially rugby wrestling sport.
Yeah, the Italian only rugby wrestling.
That week I will be going over Cherokee stickball.
Hey, there you go.
Some more culture there for you.
Beautiful.
And what about you, my good friend?
Well, I will be covering glass blowing.
Nice.
Yes, you heard that right. Glass blowing.
Maybe you'll get the chance to Make me something. A paperweight.
What? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. My schedule's kind of packed. I'll maybe buy something and say I made it.
You're gonna become an expertise in glass shopping.
Exactly.
Great.
Well, I want to give one last you're welcome to our dear listeners. But first, Drew, would you mind telling our peoples how they can get in contact with us?
Absolutely. We have a Twitter account. That handle is at You're Welcome PO1. You can mention us in a tweet with any questions you have, or you can direct message us with a subject material that you would like us to become experts in. Or if you want to reach us more directly and or professionally, you can contact us through our email. That is yourwelcomequestions@gmail.com. That's YOURE without the apostrophe. yourwelcomequestions@gmail.com. And also join our Facebook group where we establish events, send out reminders of when the next episode is coming out, and you can chat along with all the other You're Welcome fans about the most previous episode and what you thought about it. Also, don't forget to send in a 10 to 15 second original music clip if you are musically inclined. We would love to showcase some of your talents, and we'll plug your SoundCloud, or we'll plug, honestly, pretty much anything you want us to plug if you're willing to send us a 10-second music clip. So we'll plug your podcast, we'll plug your Fiverr account, we'll plug whatever the heck you want, within reason. So just send us a 10-second music clip, and we will love to feature that at the beginning of the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And hey, guys, gals, non-binary people, everyone. Don't cut that part out. Listen, if you enjoyed the show, please take the time to recommend it to just one of your friends this week. I mean, it helps us grow. We don't put any marketing money into this, and we rely entirely on the word of mouth. I know we keep saying that, but it really does help us grow. So, hey, if you enjoyed the show, you think somebody that you know would like to listen to random topics that two dudes kind of become experts on, then send it to them. Send them a link. Send them a link to the Facebook group. Get them involved in the community there. If you do that, I mean, we'd be eternally grateful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Good. Well, that'll about do it, everybody. Thank you for joining us, all you scary people. Oh, you scared me. I'm Zombie Zach.
And I'm Drew.
We'll see you next time on
You're welcome.
Welcome.